The crystal champagne flute felt heavy in my hand as I stood before 200 guests at the Riverside Country Club, celebrating the sale of Sullivan Construction for $27 million. At 67, I'd built something worth celebrating. Then, I saw it in the window's reflection, Lauren, my daughter-in-law, leaning over the drinks table, her hand moving swiftly over my glass. White powder disappeared into golden champagne. My old instincts from Vietnam kicked in hard. When her mother Margaret reached for water, I smoothly switched our glasses, pretending to help with the flowers. 6 months before that night, I sat in my office reviewing the final contracts for selling Sullivan Construction. 40 years of blood and sweat had built this company from a single pickup truck to a multi-state operation employing 300 people. The buyers, a national firm, had agreed to keep all our employees and maintain our reputation for quality. $27 million would secure my family for generations. My accountant, George Hartley, knocked and entered with a concerned expression I'd rarely seen in our 20-year relationship. "Sullivan, we need to talk about some irregularities I've found during the due diligence audit." He spread 3 documents across my desk. Personal loan agreements, each bearing my signature, totaling $800,000. The loans used company assets as collateral, something I'd never do without board approval. "I didn't sign these, George." My voice stayed steady, but inside alarms were ringing. "The signatures look authentic," he said carefully. "But the bank accounts receiving the funds are offshore, Jersey, Cayman Islands. If you didn't authorize these, someone forged them." I studied the dates. All within the last year, all processed through our secondary bank where oversight was lighter. Who had access to these types of documents? George shifted uncomfortably. "Your senior staff, obviously. Thomas as VP of Operations, your office manager Janet, and anyone with access to your home office. You keep copies there, right?" My mind immediately went to Lauren. 5 years ago, my son Thomas had brought her home for Sunday dinner. She was everything a father could want for his son: beautiful, intelligent, articulate. A pharmaceutical sales representative with a master's degree in chemistry. She charmed everyone at that first dinner, helping my ex-wife Patricia in the kitchen, discussing football with genuine enthusiasm, even showing interest in my war stories. Thomas was smitten. After years of dating women who seemed more interested in his future inheritance than him, he'd found someone with her own successful career. They married 8 months later, at a beautiful ceremony I largely paid for. I'd welcomed her into the family with open arms, even gave them the down payment for a 4-bedroom colonial in Westchester. Now sitting with George, I thought about how often Lauren visited when Thomas traveled for business. She had a key, would drop by to check on me, or bring dinner. Sweet gestures from a caring daughter-in-law. Or perfect opportunities to access my office. "Pull the security footage from my home system," I told George. "Go back 6 months. Focus on my office door." 3 days later, George returned with a flash drive and a grim expression. We watched Lauren enter my office multiple times, always when Thomas was away. The cameras showed her photographing documents, sitting at my desk, practicing something on paper. When we zoomed in and enhanced, my blood ran cold. She was practicing my signature. "What do you want to do?" George asked. "Nothing yet. I need to know more. Hire James Morrison, that investigator we used for the industrial espionage case. Tell him to dig deep, but stay invisible." Morrison, a former FBI agent, worked fast. Within a week, he'd traced the offshore accounts to a web of shell companies. The money had been moved multiple times, but eventually surfaced in payments to medical equipment suppliers and a private clinic in Costa Rica. None of it made sense for Lauren. "There's more," Morrison said during our meeting at a discreet hotel bar. "Your daughter-in-law's employment history has gaps. The pharmaceutical company she supposedly worked for. They have no record of her before 3 years ago. Her references check out, but they're all from people who left the company around the same time she did." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying Lauren Mitchell might not be who she claims to be. I need more time and resources to dig deeper." I authorized whatever he needed. Meanwhile, I continued playing the role of the grateful father-in-law. At Sunday dinners, I watched Lauren with new eyes. She was flawless in her performance, doting on Thomas, helping with dishes, asking about my health and retirement plans. "You must be so excited, Dad," she said one evening using the title she'd adopted after the wedding. "All that money from the sale. What will you do with it?" "Haven't decided yet," I replied, noting how her eyes sharpened with interest. "Probably set up trusts for the grandkids someday." "Thomas and I have been thinking about that," she said quickly. "About giving you grandchildren. Maybe sooner than you think." Patricia, my ex-wife, practically squealed with delight. Even my daughter Emily, usually cynical, as befitted a prosecutor, smiled broadly. I smiled too, but inside, I wondered what game Lauren was playing now. The security footage kept revealing new disturbing patterns. Lauren accessed my office at least twice a week. She knew when my housekeeper would be upstairs, when I had golf games, when the security system's motion sensors cycled. This wasn't opportunistic snooping. This was systematic intelligence gathering. Morrison's next report made my military-trained paranoia seem justified. I've found 2 previous identities for Lauren. Different last names, same face. She was married twice before Sullivan. Both husbands died within 3 years of marriage. Natural causes: 1 heart attack at 45. 1 car accident. Both had substantial life insurance policies. Both left everything to their grieving widow. I stared at photos of Lauren with 2 different men, wearing the same loving smile she gave Thomas. "You're telling me my son married a black widow?" "I'm telling you to be very careful, and maybe update your own life insurance beneficiaries." That night, I called my lawyer and made several changes to my estate planning. I also installed additional hidden cameras in my home ones that uploaded directly to a cloud server only I could access. If Lauren was hunting, she wouldn't be the only one gathering intelligence. The company sale proceeded on schedule. Due diligence revealed no other surprises beyond the forged loans. I covered them personally, to avoid delays or complications, letting Lauren think she'd gotten away with it. The closing was set for next month, with my retirement party planned for the week after. As I prepared for bed, I looked at a family photo on my nightstand. Thomas beamed beside Lauren at their wedding, so happy, so in love. How could I tell him his wife was a fraud? How could I prove it without destroying him? My phone buzzed with a text from Morrison. "Check your email. Urgent." The attached files showed Lauren at a medical clinic downtown, not her usual doctor. The same clinic that received payments from the offshore accounts. Surveillance photos showed her leaving with a small paper bag, the kind used for prescription medications. Morrison's note was brief. "Clinic specializes in cardiac medications. Lauren filled prescriptions for drugs her medical history doesn't justify. Be careful." I set the phone down with steady hands. 30 years ago, I'd walked through Vietnamese jungles, knowing every step could trigger a mine or ambush. I'd survived by trusting my instincts and staying 3 moves ahead of the enemy. Lauren had just revealed herself as enemy forces. The only questions now were her timeline and her exact plan. The $800,000 she'd stolen was significant, but not life-changing for someone who'd inherited from 2 previous husbands. No, she was after bigger prey. She was after the $27 million, and she was willing to kill me to get it. 2 weeks before my retirement party, I decided to confront the situation head-on. I'd gathered enough evidence, the forged signatures, security footage, bank transfers, and Morrison's investigation, revealing Lauren's false identities. My lawyer had prepared a criminal complaint. Emily, in her capacity as an assistant district attorney, stood ready to pursue charges. I planned everything carefully. A family dinner at my home, ostensibly to discuss retirement plans and the future of family finances. I'd present the evidence calmly, let Lauren know her game was over, and give her a choice: divorce Thomas quietly and disappear or face prosecution. The dining room table was set with Patricia's grandmother's china, the one we still used for important family occasions, despite our divorce 15 years ago. Patricia arrived early, as always, bearing her famous pot roast. We'd remained friendly for the children's sake, though she never quite forgave me for prioritizing the business during our marriage. "You seem tense, Sullivan," she observed while arranging flowers. "Big announcement tonight." "You could say that." I checked my jacket pocket for the flash drive containing all the evidence. "Just want to ensure everyone's future is secure." Emily arrived next, with her husband Robert and their twin boys. Sharp as a razor in the courtroom, my daughter had inherited my skeptical nature. She caught my eye and nodded slightly. She knew tonight's real purpose. Thomas and Lauren came last. My son looked tired, the stress of managing our largest construction project showing in the lines around his eyes. At 35, he was everything I'd hoped for in a successor, competent, ethical, hardworking. It killed me that I was about to shatter his world. Lauren looked radiant in a green dress that complemented her auburn hair. She kissed my cheek, in greeting her perfume expensive and subtle. "Dad, you look wonderful. Retirement must be agreeing with you already." We made small talk through dinner. Patricia's pot roast was perfect as always. The twins chattered about their Little League season. Robert discussed his expanding dental practice. Normal family conversation that felt surreal, given what I planned to expose. As dessert was served, I stood to speak. "I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. With the company sale finalizing soon, I thought we should discuss how this windfall will affect our family's future." "Here, here." Robert raised his wine glass. "Congratulations again, Sullivan." Before we celebrate, I continued reaching for the flash drive. There are some financial matters that need addressing. Specifically, some irregularities discovered during the sale audit. Lauren's smile didn't waver, but her knuckles whitened as she gripped her dessert fork. "What kind of irregularities?" Thomas asked, his project manager instincts kicking in. "Forged loans. $800,000 stolen, using falsified documents." I moved toward my laptop, ready to display the evidence on the dining room's wall-mounted screen. The investigation revealed... Lauren suddenly stood her chair, scraping against hardwood. Tears streamed down her face as she pressed a hand to her stomach. "I'm sorry, I'm just so emotional lately. Thomas and I didn't want to announce it this way, but we're having a baby. I'm 3 months pregnant." The room exploded. Patricia literally screamed with joy, rushing to embrace Lauren. The twins jumped up and down, excited about a future cousin. Robert pumped Thomas's hand enthusiastically. Even Emily, despite knowing why we were really here, couldn't help but smile at the news. Thomas wrapped his arms around his wife, his face glowing with pride and happiness. "We wanted to wait until the second trimester to be safe. But yeah, Dad, you're going to be a grandfather." I stood frozen, flash drive in hand, watching my carefully planned confrontation crumble. Lauren met my eyes over Thomas's shoulder. The tears were gone, replaced by a look of pure triumph. She knew exactly what she'd done. No father could destroy his son's joy in this moment. No grandfather could brand the mother of his future grandchild a criminal at her pregnancy announcement. "That's wonderful news." I managed pocketing the flash drive. "Congratulations to you both." The rest of the evening became an impromptu celebration. Patricia started planning the nursery. Emily discussed baby names. The twins wanted to know if they could teach their new cousin to play baseball. Through it all, Lauren played the glowing mother-to-be, perfectly, one hand protectively over her still flat stomach. "We've already seen the heartbeat," she told Patricia. "Such a strong little fighter, just like his or her grandfather." She smiled at me sweetly. "We hope the baby inherits the Sullivan strength and determination." After everyone left, I sat alone in my study Fury building. My phone showed 3 banking alerts. While we'd been celebrating, another $50,000 had been transferred from a company account. I thought we'd frozen. Lauren had anticipated our security measures and found a workaround. Morrison called an hour later. "I monitored the house during dinner. Lauren made a phone call from your bathroom. Couldn't get audio, but she was talking to someone named Marcus. Seemed pleased with herself. She announced a pregnancy. Derailed everything. Is she actually pregnant? Who knows, but it doesn't matter. She's bought herself 9 months of protection either way. Thomas is over the moon. What's your next move? I poured myself 3 fingers of whiskey, something I rarely did anymore. We keep investigating. She made a mistake tonight, Morrison. She showed me she's willing to use anything, even an unborn child, as a weapon. That tells me she's more dangerous than we thought. And if she's really pregnant, then I protect my son and grandchild from their mother. But first, I need to know what she's really planning. The theft, the false identities, now this pregnancy announcement. These are moves in a larger game. The next morning, I visited my doctor for an unscheduled appointment. Richard, I need you to run every cardiac test you have. Blood work, EKG, stress test, everything. Dr. Richard Brennan, my friend since college, looked concerned. What's brought this on your last physical was only 6 months ago. Call it paranoia, just humor me. As he drew blood, Richard made small talk. I see your daughter-in-law here sometimes. Lauren, right, lovely woman. She comes here. She has her own doctor on the east side. Not as a patient. I've seen her having lunch with Marcus Webb from cardiology. Assumed they knew each other from pharmaceutical sales. He's always schmoozing with drug reps. My blood ran cold. Marcus Webb, young guy, maybe 30. 32. Brilliant surgeon, but a bit of a playboy. Drives a Maserati he definitely can't afford on a hospital salary. Why do you ask? No reason, just curious. But I was far from curious. I was connecting dots I didn't like. Lauren had found herself a medical expert, someone who could advise her on exactly what drugs might cause an elderly man with a heart condition to suffer a fatal event that would look natural. I texted Morrison immediately. Investigate Dr. Marcus Webb, cardiologist at Presbyterian. Connection to Lauren. Priority 1. That evening, Thomas stopped by to discuss the pregnancy privately. Father and son sharing a beer on my back deck, like we'd done since he turned 21. I know the timing seems sudden, Dad, he said. But Lauren and I have been trying for a year. She's had 2 miscarriages we didn't tell anyone about. This pregnancy is a miracle. You're happy. Happier than I've ever been. She's already picked out names. Sullivan Jr. if it's a boy. I smiled, despite the knife twisting in my gut. I'm happy for you, son. You'll be a wonderful father. I learned from the best. He clinked his beer against mine. Dad, can I ask you something? At dinner before Lauren's announcement, you seemed upset about something. Some financial thing? This was my opening. I could tell him everything, show him the evidence, warn him about the woman carrying his child. Instead, I heard myself say, just some minor accounting errors, already resolved, nothing to worry about. Good, because I want you to enjoy your retirement. You've earned it, and now you'll have a grandchild to spoil. After he left, I stood on my deck, watching the sunset paint the sky red. Somewhere out there, Lauren was planning my death. She'd stolen my money, invaded my home, deceived my son, and now used an unborn child as a shield. But she'd made one crucial error. She'd let me see her true face in that moment of triumph at dinner. The mask had slipped for just a second, revealing the predator beneath. And a predator who shows themselves too early loses the advantage of surprise. I might be 67 with a heart condition, but I'd survived worse than Sullivan Mitchell, or whatever her real name was. I'd survived war. I'd survived building a business from nothing. I'd survived a divorce and raising 2 kids as a weekend father. I'd survive her too. The game was far from over. She thought she'd won with the pregnancy announcement, but she'd simply revealed another piece of her strategy. Now I knew she was playing a longer game, setting up protective barriers while she positioned for the killing blow. But 2 could play at strategy, and I'd been playing longer than she'd been alive. The next week, I kept my scheduled annual physical with Richard Brennan. We'd been friends since our Columbia days, him pre-med, while I studied engineering before Vietnam changed my trajectory. His Park Avenue practice catered to successful men our age, who wanted a doctor who'd tell them the truth over martinis at the club. Your blood work looks good. Richard said, reviewing my chart. Cholesterol's managed, blood pressure's controlled. That cardiac arrhythmia we've been monitoring is stable. Keep taking your medications, and you'll outlive us all. About those medications, I said carefully. Any dangerous interactions I should know about? Richard's eyes sharpened. He'd known me too long to miss the subtext. Sullivan, what's really going on? This is the second time you've asked about your heart meds. Just being cautious. Bullshit. He closed the file. We've been friends for 40 years. Talk to me. I made a decision. That lunch you mentioned, seeing Lauren at, with Marcus Webb. How often? Every couple weeks for the past few months. Always thought it was strange a pharmaceutical rep focusing so much attention on one doctor. Webb's not even that senior. Why? I need you to keep this between us. I think Lauren might be planning something. Those lunches weren't about selling drugs. Richard went pale. Jesus, Sullivan. You think she's… What exactly do you think? I think she's getting medical advice on how to make a 67-year-old man with a heart condition have a fatal episode that looks natural. That's a serious accusation. I have evidence she's not who she claims to be. Previous husbands who died young, forged documents, stolen money. And now she's consulting with a cardiologist about drugs I'm guessing aren't for her. Richard was quiet for a long moment. Then he picked up his phone. Martha, cancel my lunch. Something's come up. He looked at me. There's a restaurant 2 blocks over. Quiet booths, loud kitchen. We need to talk somewhere we won't be overheard. An hour later, over untouched Caesar salads, Richard laid out a terrifying education. Your medication, metoprolol. It's a beta blocker, very safe normally. But combine it with certain other drugs, and you can trigger severe bradycardia. Basically, your heart rate drops so low you pass out. Or worse. What kind of drugs? Calcium channel blockers, some antiarrhythmics, even high doses of certain supplements. The dangerous part is these interactions might not show up in a standard autopsy. It would just look like your bad heart finally gave out. Could Webb provide these drugs? Not legally, but hospital inventory isn't Fort Knox. Things go missing, and Webb. Richard hesitated. There have been rumors, gambling problems, living way beyond his means. If he's desperate enough, he might help kill someone for money. I can't believe I'm having this conversation. But yes, if someone wanted to murder you and make it look natural, a corrupt cardiologist would be the perfect accomplice. I pushed my salad away, appetite gone. What would you do in my position? Honestly, go to the police. With what suspicions? Circumstantial evidence. My son's pregnant wife having lunch with a doctor. Richard nodded slowly. Then, you need real evidence. And you need to be very, very careful. If they're planning what you think they're planning, the retirement party would be perfect. Public setting, lots of confusion, alcohol flowing. Easy to slip something into a drink. Already thought of that. I'm having the event professionally secured. Not enough. Richard pulled out his prescription pad. I'm writing you a script for naloxone and flumazenil. Carry them at all times. They're antidotes for various drug overdoses. Also, start varying your routine. Don't eat or drink anything you haven't prepared yourself or seen opened. You're scaring me, Richard. Good. Fear keeps you alive. Anne Sullivan. That cardiac arrhythmia we discussed, I'm going to note in your file that it's gotten worse. Require more frequent monitoring. Give you a medical reason to be extra cautious. Morrison's report arrived that evening confirming our worst suspicions. Dr. Marcus Webb owed $300,000 to various bookmakers and loan sharks. His credit cards were maxed. His Maserati was 2 payments from repossession. 6 months ago, he'd been flush with cash, paying off earlier debts and living large. The timing coincided with Lauren's first forged loan from my company. More damning were the photographs. Morrison's surveillance showed Lauren and Webb at a hotel in Midtown. The pictures left no doubt about the nature of their relationship. My son's pregnant wife was having an affair with a desperate doctor who specialized in exactly the organ they needed to fail. But the real shock came in Morrison's addendum. Webb's been researching specific drug combinations on medical databases, queries about cardiac events in elderly patients, and undetectable drug interactions. He's also accessed hospital pharmacy records for drugs not typically used in cardiac surgery. I sat in my home office surrounded by evidence of betrayal and attempted murder. The smart play was to take everything to the authorities immediately. Let Emily coordinate with the DA's office. Have Lauren and Webb arrested before they could act. But I kept thinking about Thomas's face when he talked about becoming a father. The joy in his eyes when he said they'd been trying for a year. How could I destroy that without absolute proof? What if I was wrong? What if the pregnancy was real, and Lauren, despite her crimes, truly loved my son? My phone rang. Morrison. "I'm at the hospital," he said without preamble. Followed Webb to a storage room in the basement. He met with someone not Lauren. Male, mid-50s, gray hair. They exchanged something. Looked like a pharmaceutical transaction. "Can you identify the other man?" "Working on it." But Sullivan Webb looked scared. "Whatever they're planning, I don't think he's the mastermind. He's being pressured, or paid. Maybe both." "Any way to find out what drugs he obtained?" "Not without a warrant, but I've got a contact in hospital security. Give me 24 hours. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house made me wonder if they'd moved up their timeline. I checked the new security cameras, constantly verified my doors were locked, even wedged a chair under my bedroom doorknob, like I hadn't done since coming home from the war with nightmares. At 3 a.m., I gave up on sleep and went to my safe. Inside were documents accumulated over a lifetime: birth certificates, the deed to my first house, my discharge papers, photos of Thomas and Emily as babies, and my service weapon, a Colt .45 I'd carried through 2 tours in Vietnam. I hadn't touched it in years, but my hands remembered the weight, the way it balanced. I wouldn't use it, couldn't use it. This wasn't a war zone where enemies wore different uniforms. This was my life, my family, where the enemy smiled at Sunday dinners and called me Dad. The next day, I met with my estate attorney, Harold Fitzgerald. We'd worked together for 20 years, setting up the company structure, managing my divorce settlement, planning for succession. "I want to make some changes," I told him. "Significant ones." Harold raised an eyebrow. "The sale is almost complete. Major changes now could complicate things." "I don't care. I want new trusts established for Thomas and Emily, locked tight. No spousal access under any circumstances. All distributions require approval from 3 trustees." "That's quite restrictive. May I ask why?" "You may not. Just do it." He made notes. "What about life insurance beneficiaries?" "Remove Lauren entirely. Split between Thomas and Emily, but again held in trust. Also, I want a clause added. If I die under suspicious circumstances within 5 years, everything gets frozen pending a full investigation. No distributions to anyone." "Sullivan, that's highly unusual. It could tie up the estate for years." "Then let's hope I live past 5 years." Harold studied me over his reading glasses. "Is there something I should know? As your attorney, I have obligations if you're in danger." "I'm taking precautions, nothing more." "How quickly can you draft these changes?" "Give me 3 days. But Sullivan, if someone's threatening you..." "No threats, just being careful." I left his office and drove to the gun range I'd frequented in my younger days. My membership had lapsed, but they remembered me. The Colt felt familiar in my hands as I fired round after round into paper targets. My grouping was off, but muscle memory returned quickly. By the end of an hour, I was hitting center mass consistently. "Planning on competing again?" the rangemaster asked. "Just staying sharp, old habits." But we both knew competition shooters didn't practice with decades-old service weapons or fire with the grim determination I displayed. That evening, Emily stopped by unannounced. My daughter had her mother's beauty, but my suspicious nature. She found me in the garage organizing tools I'd already organized twice. Dad, what's going on? Mom says you've been acting strange. Thomas mentioned you've been hard to reach. Just busy with retirement planning. Bullshit. She sounded exactly like her mother when angry. I'm a prosecutor. I know when someone's building a case. What are you building a case against? I set down a wrench and really looked at my daughter. Sharp, fearless, righteous. Everything I'd raised her to be. Hypothetically, I said slowly, if you suspected someone close to the family was dangerous, but couldn't prove it, what would you do? Emily's eyes narrowed. How dangerous? Life-threatening, dangerous. Then I'd gather evidence legally, document everything, never be alone with them, and I'd tell someone I trusted what was happening. She paused. This is about Lauren, isn't it? What makes you say that? Dad, I'm not blind. She appears out of nowhere, marries Thomas fast. Suddenly you're changing security codes and meeting with private investigators. What did you find? I made another decision. Emily needed to know if only to protect herself and her family. I told her everything, the forged documents, the false identities, the dead husband's web, and the drugs. She listened without interrupting, prosecutor mode engaged. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. We need to arrest her now, she finally said. Tonight. On what charge? Forging signatures I've already covered. Having lunch with a doctor. Being married before everything else is circumstantial. Then we build a stronger case. I'll talk to financial crimes, get surveillance warrants. We can... She's pregnant, Emily. Or claims to be. Thomas is ecstatic. If we're wrong, if she's just a gold digger and not a killer, I'll have destroyed my son's marriage for nothing. And if you're right and do nothing, you'll be dead. We stared at each other across the workbench. My fierce daughter, ready to fight for me. But I'd been fighting my own battles for 6 decades. I'll be careful, I promised. The party is in a week. If she's going to make a move, it'll be then. I'll be ready. How can you be ready for someone trying to poison you? I thought about the antidotes Richard prescribed, the security Morrison had arranged, the cameras recording everything. Because she doesn't know I know. That's my advantage. She thinks I'm just a foolish old man who fell for her pregnancy announcement. Let her keep thinking that. Emily hugged me tight, something she rarely did anymore. Don't let her win, Dad. Thomas needs you. I need you. Even Mom needs you, though she'd never admit it. After she left, I returned to my office and reviewed everything one more time. Lauren's plan was becoming clearer. Kill me at the retirement party, making it look like my heart gave out from excitement or stress. Inherit through Thomas. Then, God help him. Maybe Thomas would have an accident too. Leave the grieving widow with a baby and 27 million reasons to start fresh somewhere else. But knowing the plan meant I could counter it. Sun Tzu wrote that all warfare is based on deception. Lauren had been deceiving us for years. Now it was my turn. The retirement party would go forward as planned. Let her think she'd won. Let her make her move. I'd be ready with a deception of my own. 4 days before the retirement party, Thomas called to say he and Lauren were taking a last-minute spa weekend. The doctor says she needs to reduce stress for the baby, he explained. Some bleeding scares. We'll be at Canyon Ranch back Monday. Is everything okay with the pregnancy? Fine, just precautionary. Lauren's been working herself up about your party, wants everything perfect. I figured a weekend away would help. I expressed appropriate concern, wished them well, and hung up. Then I called Morrison. They're leaving town, I told him. Both of them. That's interesting. Webb just withdrew $5,000 cash from an ATM. Man with gambling debts doesn't usually have that kind of walking around money. Think Lauren's paying him to stay clear while she's gone? Or paying him for something already delivered? Want me to follow them? No, I have a different idea. I'd kept a key to Thomas and Lauren's house since helping them move in. For emergencies, they'd said. This qualified. I waited until Saturday afternoon, then drove to their Westchester Colonial. The neighborhood was quiet families enjoying the warm spring weekend. Their alarm code was Thomas's birthday unchanged since installation. I'd lectured him about security, but he'd laughed it off. Who'd rob them in this safe suburb? The house smelled of Lauren's perfume, and the lilies she always kept fresh in the foyer. I moved through familiar rooms, noting the expensive additions since my last visit. New art on the walls, designer furniture, a kitchen renovation Thomas hadn't mentioned. All paid for with stolen money, I assumed. Lauren's office was locked, but I'd taught Thomas carpentry as a boy. We'd rebuilt houses together every summer through high school. The same skills that built doors could open them. The lock yielded in minutes. Her desk was meticulously organized. Files labeled by month bills marked paid everything in its place. The locked bottom drawer took longer, but military training included more than just shooting. Inside were insurance documents that made my blood freeze. 2 months ago, Lauren had convinced Thomas to take out a $2 million life insurance policy on me. The paperwork showed Thomas's signature, but I knew my son's handwriting. This was another forgery. The beneficiary structure was complex, multiple trusts and subsidiaries, but I'd spent 40 years reading contracts. Ultimate beneficiary, if both Thomas and I died, Sullivan Mitchell, or her unborn child if she predeceased. Beneath the insurance papers were printed medical articles. Drug interactions in elderly cardiac patients. Undetectable toxins in post-mortem analysis. Beta blocker overdose symptoms. Each annotated in Lauren's precise handwriting. She'd been studying for months. A folder marked personal caught my eye. Inside were documents that revealed Lauren's true history. Her real name was Lauren Kovach, born in Chicago 38 years ago, not the 33 she claimed. Marriage certificates showed 2 previous husbands, David Chen, a tech entrepreneur who died of a heart attack at 45, and Michael Vanessa, a hedge fund manager who died in a car accident at 51. Both men had been wealthy. Both died within 3 years of marriage. Both left everything to their young widow. Newspaper clippings told the stories. Chen collapsed at a business dinner, apparent cardiac arrest, despite no previous heart conditions. Vanessa's car went off a cliff in the Hamptons, brake failure suspected, but never proven. Lauren had played the grieving widow perfectly, both times, then disappeared with the inheritance. I photographed everything with a digital camera, careful to replace each document exactly. The final folder made me pause. Baby names was written on the tab in Lauren's handwriting. Inside were ultrasound images dated 2 weeks ago, not from her regular doctor, but from a clinic in Queens that advertised discreet services. The images were fake. I'd seen enough real ultrasounds when Patricia carried Thomas and Emily. These were stock medical images probably downloaded online. The pregnancy that had my son walking on air that had derailed my confrontation was as fake as everything else about Lauren. A sound from outside made me freeze. Car door slamming. I moved to the window and saw a gray Honda parked across the street. Morrison's surveillance mentioned a gray-haired man meeting with Webb. This could be him. I quickly finished photographing evidence and reset the office door lock. The house alarm panel showed no breaches. I slipped out through the garage using shrubs for cover. The Honda was still there, engine running. Back in my car, I called Morrison. Gray Honda license plate beginning with K7, parked outside Thomas's house. On it, you clear? Clear and moving. But Morrison, there's more bad news. The pregnancy is fake. She's planning to kill both Thomas and me for insurance money. Jesus Christ, we need to stop this now. 3 more days. Let them think everything is proceeding as planned. But I want extra security at the party, and I need you to find out who's in that Honda. That evening, I sat with printed copies of everything I'd photographed. The evidence was overwhelming, but also devastating. How do you tell your son his wife is a serial killer? That the baby he's planning his future around doesn't exist? That the woman he loves has murdered before and plans to murder again? My phone rang. Harold Fitzgerald, my attorney. Sullivan, the estate changes you requested are ready for signature. But I need to inform you that someone's been inquiring about your current estate structure. Who? A law firm representing Sullivan Mitchell. They claim to need the information for financial planning related to the pregnancy. My staff didn't release anything without your authorization, of course. When was this? Yesterday. Right after you left my office, actually. Almost like they knew you'd been here. I thought about the times I'd suspected I was being followed. The feeling of being watched. Harold, I need those documents signed tonight. Can you meet me? This is really serious, isn't it? Life and death serious. Can you meet me? We met at his office at 9 p.m. I signed everything, completely restructuring my estate to lock Lauren out regardless of what happened. Harold witnessed my signature with the gravity of a man presiding over a funeral. These are bulletproof, he assured me. No matter what happens, she can't touch a penny without going through the trustees. And the investigation clause means any suspicious death freezes everything for years. Good. One more thing. If something happens to me at the retirement party, I want you to immediately file these documents and notify Emily. She'll know what to do. Harold looked pale. Sullivan, please reconsider going to the police now. With what a fake pregnancy, previous marriages, she'll claim coincidence, and I'll look like a paranoid old man trying to break up his son's marriage. No, I need her to make her move. I need proof. Driving home, I noticed the gray Honda 3 cars back. Not close enough to be obvious, but maintaining distance perfectly. Professional surveillance, or at least someone trained. I took several unnecessary turns, and the Honda stayed with me. Instead of going home, I drove to Emily's house. Let them follow me there. Let them see me involving my prosecutor daughter. Maybe it would make them nervous, force a mistake. Emily was still awake, case files spread across her dining table. Her husband Robert had taken the boys to his mother's for the weekend, giving her quiet time to work. Dad, it's late. Everything okay? I handed her copies of everything. I need you to hold these. Insurance for my insurance, you might say. She scanned the documents, her expression growing more horrified with each page. This woman is a professional killer. Dad, we have to act now. We will. At the party. I've arranged everything with Morrison. Security, surveillance, medical support. If she tries anything, we'll catch her in the act. And if something goes wrong, if she succeeds, then you'll have everything you need to put her away for life. Promise me, Emily, if something happens, you don't let her get away with it. You protect Thomas. Nothing's going to happen. We won't let it. But her voice shook slightly. We both understood the risk I was taking. Using myself as bait was the only way to expose Lauren completely to save Thomas from years of manipulation ending in his own death. There's something else, I said. The pregnancy is fake. When this is over, Thomas will need you. He'll need his sister. Emily hugged me again harder than before. I really hate her, Dad. I hate what she's done to our family. Don't hate her. Understand her. She's a predator, nothing more. And predators can be trapped when you know their patterns. I left Emily's house and drove home, the Honda still following. As I pulled into my garage, I waved at my shadows. Let them know I saw them. Let them report back to Lauren that her father-in-law was aware and unafraid. In my office, I opened my safe and added the new insurance documents to my growing file. $2 million in life insurance I never authorized. Combined with my estate, Lauren stood to inherit through Thomas close to $30 million. Enough to disappear forever, start fresh in another country under another name. But she'd made critical errors. The fake pregnancy gave her protection, but also a timeline. She couldn't maintain the lie for 9 months. She needed me dead, soon needed to establish herself as the grieving daughter-in-law before her deception unraveled. The retirement party was perfect. Public setting, lots of witnesses to my natural death, alcohol flowing to cover any strange tastes. She'd have one chance to dose me with whatever Webb had procured. One shot at murder disguised as celebration. I smiled grimly. Sun Tzu wrote that opportunities multiply as they are seized. Lauren had seized the opportunity of the party, but in doing so, she'd given me opportunities too. to expose her trap, her and save my son from the fate that befell David Chen and Michael Vanessa. 3 days until the party. 3 days to finalize every detail, anticipate every move, prepare for war disguised as retirement. I poured myself a whiskey and raised it to Lauren's photo on the mantel, the one from Thomas's wedding, where she smiled so beautifully, so innocently. You picked the wrong family, I told her image. The wrong father-in-law, the wrong victim. Because I wasn't David Chen, trusting and naive. I wasn't Michael Vanessa blinded by beauty. I was Sullivan Mitchell who'd survived Vietnam, built an empire from nothing, and would be damned if some black widow would destroy what I'd spent a lifetime creating. The game approached its climax. All the pieces were in position. Let her make her move. The week of my retirement party arrived with spring in full bloom. The Riverside Country Club grounds looked magnificent, and I spent Monday morning doing a final walkthrough with Morrison and his security team. Cameras here, here, and here. Morrison pointed to discrete positions. Full coverage of the main ballroom, the cocktail area, and service entrances. Everything uploads to a secure server in real time. What about the kitchen? 2 men stationed inside, 3 more circulating as guests. Everyone's been briefed on Lauren and Webb. If either makes a move toward your food or drinks, we'll see it. The party coordinator, a efficient woman named Janet Summers, joined us with her clipboard. Mr. Mitchell, the champagne you requested arrived this morning. Dom Perignon, as specified. Should we use the club's crystal flutes? Yes, but I want specific glasses marked. I handed her a diagram. I'll be using the flutes with etched bases. Mark them with UV ink so my security can identify them under black light. Janet looked puzzled but noted it. Of course. Anything else? The seating arrangement I provided is exact. No changes, no matter who requests them. After she left, Morrison raised an eyebrow. UV ink. Insurance. If Lauren switches glasses or drugs mine, we'll have proof of which glass was originally mine. Chain of custody for evidence. You're thinking like a cop. I'm thinking like a survivor. That afternoon, I met with Richard Brennan at his office. He'd prepared a medical kit for me to carry. Naloxone flumazenol, activated charcoal ipecac, he explained. Antidotes for the most likely drug she could use. Also, an EpiPen in case she goes for something that causes anaphylaxis. Will I have time to use these? Depends on the dose and delivery method. If you suspect you've been drugged, don't wait. Use the appropriate antidote immediately. Better a false alarm than a funeral. Which would you use? Richard grimaced. Webb's queries focused on cardiac drugs. Beta blockers, calcium channel blockers, digitalis. Based on that, I'd guess something that mimics or exacerbates your existing arrhythmia. You'd feel dizzy, short of breath, then your heart rate would drop dangerously low. Treatment. Atropine, which I've included. But Sullivan, the best treatment is prevention. Don't let her get close to your drinks. I left his office with a small medical bag that would stay within arm's reach at the party. Emily met me for coffee afterward, bringing files from her office. I've been researching Lauren's previous victims, she said quietly. Both Chen and Vanessa had events at restaurants, public places with lots of witnesses who saw them collapse naturally. She's got a pattern. What else? Chen's family suspected foul play, but couldn't prove anything. His brother hired investigators, but Lauren had already cremated the body citing religious reasons that were completely fabricated. By the time anyone could object, the evidence was ash. She won't get that chance with me. I've already specified no cremation in my will, and you have medical power of attorney. Full autopsy with extended toxicology if anything happens. Emily nodded, but looked troubled. Dad, I've been thinking. What if she doesn't use the party? What if she's planning something else? Like what? Thomas called me yesterday. Said Lauren's been encouraging him to take you on a father-son trip after the party. Deep-sea fishing in the Gulf. Just the 3 of you on a boat for a week. My blood chilled. International waters. No witnesses except Thomas. Easy to throw a body overboard, claim an accident. I'll decline the invitation. Bad timing with the business transition. Be careful how you decline. Don't make her suspicious. That evening, I installed one final piece of insurance. A small voice recorder in my jacket pocket, another in my watch. If Lauren said anything incriminating, I'd have it captured. Morrison had also provided a cell phone modified to send an emergency signal with one button press. Tuesday morning brought an unexpected visitor. Harold Mitchell. Lauren's father appeared at my door. I'd met him once at the wedding, found him vaguely unsettling with his Eastern European accent and cold eyes. Now those eyes studied me with calculation. "Sullivan, we should talk man to man," he said without preamble. I let him in, but kept my hand near the panic button Morrison had installed. "What brings you here, Harold?" "My daughter tells me you've been asking questions, making accusations. This concerns me." "I haven't accused anyone of anything." "No. Then why the investigators following her? Why the changes to your will that exclude her?" So, they knew about the estate restructuring. Harold's intelligence network was better than I'd expected. "My financial arrangements are my business," I said evenly. Harold leaned forward, his accent thickening. "Let me be clear. Lauren is carrying your grandchild, Thomas's heir. Any attempt to cut them out of their rightful inheritance would be unfortunate." "Is that a threat?" "It's an observation. Accidents happen to older men who make enemies of their families. Heart attacks fall so many dangers for a man your age." I stood, ending the conversation. "Thank you for visiting, Harold. I'll see you at the party Saturday." He rose slowly, straightening his cheap suit. "Yes, the party. A celebration of your success. Such events can be overwhelming for a man with heart problems. The excitement, the emotions. I hope you pace yourself." After he left, I called Morrison immediately. "Harold Mitchell just threatened me in my own home. I'll pull everything on him. But Sullivan, this changes things. It's not just Lauren now. This is a family operation." The gray Honda. Registered to a shell company with ties to Harold's supposed import business. Which, by the way, doesn't seem to import anything except trouble. Wednesday passed in final preparations. I signed papers selling Sullivan Construction the wire transfer of $27 million scheduled for Friday. I met with my banker to ensure the funds would go directly into the protected trusts Harold had helped establish. Lauren would see the money arrive, but be unable to touch it. Thursday morning, Thomas and Lauren returned from their spa weekend. They invited me for dinner, which I couldn't refuse without raising suspicions. I wore the voice recorder and kept the medical kit in my car. Lauren looked radiant, playing the glowing mother-to-be perfectly. She'd even developed a small belly, probably padding or special clothing. The performance was flawless. "Dad, you look tired," she said with apparent concern. "Are you sure the party isn't too much stress?" "I'm fine, just busy with the sale details." $27 million, Harold said, having invited himself to dinner. "Such a large amount. I hope you have good security for the banking." "All electronic, very secure." "Still," Lauren interjected, "identity theft is so common. Someone could drain your accounts before you noticed." Margaret, Lauren's mother, nodded vigorously. "Happened to my cousin. Lost everything to hackers." I smiled pleasantly, while noting their coordinated approach. They were probing for weaknesses, trying to find another angle if the murder plot failed. "That's why everything goes directly into trusts," I said. "Multiple signatures required for any withdrawals. Very safe." Lauren's smile tightened, almost imperceptibly. Another avenue blocked. "About that fishing trip," Thomas said, changing subjects. Lauren thought it would be perfect. Just us guys bonding before the baby comes. "I appreciate the thought, but the timing won't work. Too many post-sale obligations." "That's a shame," Harold rumbled. "The sea can be very peaceful, very final." The word hung in the air. Thomas, oblivious to the undercurrent, continued eating. Lauren shot her father a warning look. Margaret focused on her plate. I memorized every detail for the recording. After dinner, Lauren walked me to my car. Dad, I wanted to apologize for my father. He can be intense, old-world attitudes about family and money. I understand. She touched my arm gently. I hope you know how much you mean to me. To us. This baby will be so lucky to have you as a grandfather. Her performance was perfect. Sincere eyes, warm smile, gentle touch. If I didn't know the truth, I'd have been completely fooled. The party will be wonderful, she continued. I've been helping Janet with final touches. Made sure your favorite champagne is featured. That's thoughtful. Oh, and Dr. Brennan will be there. I ran into him at the hospital and invited him personally. Thought you'd want your old friend present for such a milestone. Warning bells rang in my head. Why would she specifically ensure Richard attended, unless she wanted a doctor present when I collapsed someone to pronounce me dead at the scene, preventing any immediate investigation? That's very considerate, I managed. She kissed my cheek, her perfume cloying. Sleep well, Dad. Big day coming. I drove home, carefully checking for tales, reviewing the conversation. They'd made multiple veiled threats, probed for financial vulnerabilities, and confirmed the party was their target. Lauren's mention of Richard suggested they planned to act quickly, wanting medical authority present to control the narrative. Friday arrived with thunderstorms, which felt appropriate. The money transferred successfully, all $27 million safe in protected trusts. I spent the day with Morrison reviewing every security measure. My team is ready, he assured me. We'll have eyes on every drink, every plate, every person who comes near you. First sign of trouble, we intervene. What about the family? Harold and Margaret are under surveillance. Webb too. If any of them make unusual moves tomorrow, we'll know. That evening, I sat alone in my study, reviewing my life. Built a company from nothing, raised 2 children, survived a war and a divorce. Now I faced perhaps my greatest battle against an enemy who wore my family's face. I opened my safe and touched the Colt 45 briefly. No, that wasn't the way. This required intelligence, not firepower. Lauren had been hunting predators who trusted her, but I knew her nature now. The hunter had become the hunted. My phone buzzed with a text from Thomas. Can't wait for tomorrow, Dad. So proud of everything you've accomplished. Love you. I texted back, love you too, son. Everything I built was for you and Emily. Let him remember that after tomorrow, when the truth came out. Let him know his father's last thoughts were of love, not suspicion or fear. The stage was set. The players in position. Tomorrow at my retirement party, Lauren would make her move. And I would make mine. Saturday arrived clear and bright, the previous day's storms, leaving the air fresh and cool. I dressed carefully in my best Navy suit, checking that the medical kit Richard prepared fit discreetly in my inner pocket. The voice recorder was clipped inside my jacket, the emergency phone in my trouser pocket. Morrison called at noon. My team's in position. We've got eyes on the Kovacs family. They left their hotel 30 minutes ago, should arrive at 4:30 as scheduled. Kovacs, Lauren's real surname. Figured we might as well use it amongst ourselves. Sullivan, are you sure about this? We could intercede before they even enter. No, it has to play out. Otherwise, it's just speculation and circumstantial evidence. I need them to commit. The Riverside Country Club looked magnificent in the afternoon sun. 200 guests would soon fill the ballroom, celebrating my retirement and the company sale. Friends, business associates, employees who'd helped build Sullivan Construction. Good people who had no idea they'd witness an attempted murder. Janet Summers met me at the entrance. Mr. Mitchell, everything's arranged exactly as requested. The UV-marked glasses are at your table settings precisely as diagrammed. The champagne, stored in a locked refrigerator, only opened when you give the signal for toasts. My head server Carlos will personally handle your table. I'd known Carlos for years, trusted him completely. One less variable to worry about. Guests began arriving at 4. I stood in the receiving line, shaking hands, accepting congratulations, playing the proud retiree. Each smile took effort when my nerves were wound tight as piano wire. Patricia arrived early, still beautiful at 65. We'd been divorced 15 years, but she squeezed my hand with genuine affection. "You did it, Sullivan. Built something amazing. I'm proud of you." "Thank you, Patty, for everything, especially for Thomas and Emily." She looked puzzled by my intensity, but moved on. Emily arrived next with Robert and the boys, who were excited about the chocolate fountain they'd spotted. I hugged my grandsons extra tight, memorizing their laughs. "You okay, Dad?" Emily whispered. "Ready," I assured her. "You remember what to do. Stay close, watch everything. Document anything suspicious." She pressed something into my hand. "Pepper spray, just in case." I pocketed it gratefully, my daughter always thinking tactically. Richard Brennan arrived with his wife, pulled me aside immediately. "I've got a full medical kit in my car and hospital privileges if needed. At the first sign of distress, we go straight to Presbyterian. No arguments." "Understood." "Sullivan, I've been thinking. What if—" "Not now, Richard. We stick to the plan." 4:30 arrived with the Kovach clan. Lauren wore a flowing blue dress that emphasized her fake pregnancy bump. She kissed my cheek warmly, playing the devoted daughter-in-law. Thomas beamed beside her, so proud, so oblivious. Harold and Margaret followed Harold's eyes, scanning the room like a predator, cataloging prey. He shook my hand with unnecessary force. "Beautiful venue, Sullivan. You must be very happy." "Getting happier by the minute," I replied honestly. As cocktail hour progressed, I watched Lauren work the room. She was brilliant, charming executives, flattering wives, even kneeling awkwardly to talk with children despite her condition. Nobody suspected the killer beneath the performance. Morrison's voice came through a tiny earpiece he'd insisted I wear. "Webb just arrived, alone, looking nervous. He's heading for the bar." I spotted the young doctor sweating despite the air conditioning. His hands shook as he ordered whiskey. Whatever his role tonight, he clearly wasn't comfortable with it. Good. Nervous people made mistakes. "Ladies and gentlemen," Janet announced, "dinner is served." The crowd moved toward assigned tables. I sat at the head table with family Thomas and Lauren to my right, Emily and Robert to my left, Patricia beside them. Harold and Margaret were strategically placed at the next table, close enough to watch, but not intervene. As salads were served, I noticed Lauren checking her phone repeatedly, waiting for a signal confirmation. Her father caught her eye and nodded slightly. "Dad," Thomas said, raising his water glass, "before the official toasts, I just want to say how proud I am to be your son. Everything I know about integrity, hard work, and family I learned from you." Others at surrounding tables heard and applauded. I smiled at my son, memorizing his face before innocence died. "Thank you, Thomas. You've exceeded every hope I had for you." The main course arrived without incident. I ate carefully, though Morrison's team had cleared everything. Conversation flowed normally. Stories of the company's early days, laughter over shared memories. Almost possible to forget the danger coiled beside me. Then came the moment. "Time for champagne," Janet announced. Servers appeared with bottles, Carlos personally attending our table with the UV-marked flutes. I watched Lauren's eyes follow the glasses, noting which one was placed before me. Harold stood at his table. Before official speeches, a toast from family. He raised his glass toward me. "To Sullivan Mitchell, who built an empire. May you enjoy the fruits of your labor in health and happiness." Everyone stood, glasses raised. I lifted mine, noting in my peripheral vision, as Lauren shifted slightly, her hand moving near the flower arrangement between us. Morrison's voice whispered urgently in my ear, "She's making her move." Time slowed, as I'd experienced in combat. Lauren's fingers dipped into her purse, emerged with a small vial. Her body shielded the action from most angles, but the overhead camera would catch it. The clear liquid dropped into my champagne, just as Harold finished his toast. "Salud!" the crowd chorused. This was the moment. I could expose her now, have Morrison's team rush in. But that would only prove attempted poisoning. I needed more. Needed her to believe she'd succeeded. As glasses moved toward lips, I shifted my weight as if stumbling slightly. My champagne flute knocked against Margaret's water glass, spilling both. In the confusion of apologies and napkins, I smoothly switched my glass with Margaret's champagne, just another clumsy grandfather making things right. "So sorry, Margaret. Here, take mine. I'll get another." She accepted with grandmotherly grace, patting my hand. "No harm done, dear." I signaled Carlos for a fresh glass, watching Margaret raise the champagne to her lips. Watched her drink deeply. Watched Lauren's face register first confusion, then alarm, as she realized what had happened. 10 minutes. That's all it took. Margaret was laughing at something Patricia said when her face flushed deep red. Sweat beaded on her forehead despite the cool room. She pressed a hand to her chest mouth, opening in distress. I can't," she gasped, reaching for Harold. Her collapse was dramatic. The champagne flute shattered on the floor as she fell, body convulsing. Screams erupted from nearby tables. Chairs overturned as people scrambled back. "Mom." Lauren rushed to her, dropping to her knees. But her reaction was wrong. No shock, no confusion. She checked Margaret's pulse professionally, already knowing what she'd find. "Someone call 911. She's having a cardiac event." Richard was there in seconds, medical training overriding social courtesy. He checked Margaret's vitals, looked up sharply. "This isn't natural. Her heart rate's dropping too fast. Someone get my bag from the car." But Lauren was already shouting medical terms, trying to control the narrative. "She has a history arrhythmia. She needs atropine." "Since when does your mother have arrhythmia?" Richard demanded. "And how do you know she needs atropine specifically?" Lauren faltered, realizing her mistake. In her panic, she'd revealed medical knowledge she shouldn't have. Knowledge about the specific drug needed to counter what she'd put in my champagne. Morrison's team moved smoothly into position, blocking exits without seeming to. Emily appeared at my side, pepper spray, palmed and ready. But I watched Harold, who hadn't moved from his chair. The old man sat frozen, watching his wife convulse with an expression of cold calculation. No rush to help, no cries of anguish. Just assessment, like viewing a chess piece sacrificed for larger strategy. Paramedics burst through the doors in minutes, Richard directing them efficiently. "Probable digitalis overdose. Start IV, push atropine, get her on a monitor." As they worked, I felt Lauren's eyes on me. The mask had slipped completely, now revealing the predator beneath. She knew I'd switched glasses, knew I'd beaten her at her own game. But more importantly, she knew I knew everything. "Dad?" Thomas grabbed my arm, voice breaking. "What's happening? Why would Mom have your champagne?" Before I could answer, Morrison's voice crackled in my earpiece. "Sullivan, Harold's moving." The old man had finally stood, reaching into his jacket. Time slowed again, as my combat instincts screamed danger. But he didn't pull a weapon. Instead, he produced a cell phone, raising it to photograph the scene. Evidence of his wife's collapse at my party, perhaps planning to blame me somehow. "Mr. Kovac," I said clearly, using his real name. "Your wife needs you." His eyes snapped to mine, cold and reptilian. "Mitchell, what did you do?" "Nothing. Your daughter, however, seems to have made a terrible mistake." Lauren heard her real name and went pale. The game was over, covers blown, years of careful construction crumbling in minutes. She stood slowly, one hand still on her fake pregnancy bump. "Thomas," she said desperately, "I can explain." "Explain what?" My son looked between us, confusion giving way to horror. "Lauren, what's going on?" Margaret's convulsions had stopped paramedics working frantically. Richard called out vitals that sounded increasingly grim. Whatever Lauren had intended for me was powerful, possibly fatal, even with immediate treatment. "Mr. Mitchell," one of Morrison's team appeared at my elbow. "We need you to come with us. Now." But I stood firm. "Not yet." Because Webb had appeared in the doorway, drawn by the commotion. His face went white as he saw Margaret on the floor, paramedics working. He met Lauren's eyes across the room, and in that moment, his nerve broke completely. "I didn't sign up for this," he shouted. "You said it would be untraceable. Said nobody would get hurt except—" He stopped realizing he'd just confessed in front of 200 witnesses. Lauren's carefully constructed world imploded in seconds. Thomas stepped away from her, shaking his head. Emily had her phone out, calling for police backup. Morrison's team had sealed every exit. "Ladies and gentlemen," I addressed the stunned crowd, "I apologize for the disruption to our celebration. Please remain calm and in your seats. The authorities will need statements from everyone." As sirens wailed closer, I looked at Lauren one last time. The beautiful mask was gone, replaced by something feral and desperate. She'd lost everything in one switched glass. Her mother poisoned by her own hand, her husband, realizing her betrayal, her freedom about to end. "How?" she whispered. "You forgot something important," I told her. "I survived a war. I built a company. I raised 2 children who taught me to see truth through lies. You were never going to win this." The police arrived as Margaret was being wheeled out, Richard riding along to manage her care. Whether she'd survive remained uncertain. The poison, meant for my heart, now attacked hers poetic justice with a bitter edge. Harold tried to leave but found Morrison's team blocking him. "You can't hold me. I've done nothing." "Conspiracy to commit murder," Emily said, flashing her DA credentials. "Plus, whatever else we find when we tear your life apart. Sit down, Mr. Kovach." As police took statements and secured evidence, I found Thomas sitting alone at our table staring at the broken champagne flute. His world had shattered as completely as the crystal. "Son, how long have you known?" His voice was hollow, shocked. "A few weeks. I wanted to be wrong." "The baby?" "I'm sorry." He crumpled, then my strong son breaking like a child. I held him as he sobbed, grieving for a love that had never existed, a future built on lies. Around us, my retirement party had become a crime scene, but all I cared about was my boy's breaking heart. The celebration was over, but we'd survived. Lauren's poison had found an unintended victim, her own mother paying the price for her daughter's greed. The Kovach family's deadly game had ended not with my death, but their own destruction. Justice served cold at a party meant for joy. Sun Tzu would have appreciated the irony. The next 6 months passed in a blur of legal proceedings, revelations, and painful rebuilding. Margaret Kovach survived her poisoning, though barely. 3 days in intensive care, permanent cardiac damage, and a lifetime of medication awaited her. The irony wasn't lost on anyone that she'd suffer the fate intended for me. The trial began in September, drawing media attention as details emerged. I sat in the gallery every day, watching justice unfold with the same determination I'd once applied to building Sullivan Construction. Lauren, whose real name was indeed Lara Kovacevic, faced a litany of charges. Emily had built an airtight case with the federal prosecutor using evidence we'd gathered, plus what emerged from deeper investigation. "Your Honor," the prosecutor began opening arguments, "we will show that the defendant is a calculating predator who has spent 15 years murdering wealthy men for their estates. 3 husbands, dead millions, stolen families destroyed. She came to this country specifically to hunt, and she nearly succeeded again." The evidence was overwhelming. Morrison's surveillance footage showed Lauren poisoning my champagne clearly. The UV-marked glass glowed under blacklight in crime scene photos proving the switch. Her medical research, the forged documents, the fake pregnancy. Each piece built an undeniable picture. But the most shocking revelation came from Thomas himself. My son took the stand on the 3rd day composed, despite his obvious pain. What he revealed stunned even me. 3 months before my father's retirement party, I discovered my wife's true identity, he said clearly. I was organizing our files for taxes and found documents she'd hidden, previous marriage certificates under different names. The courtroom buzzed. Even I straightened in surprise. "What did you do with this information?" the prosecutor asked. "I contacted the FBI." Thomas looked directly at Lauren for the first time. I've been working with them since then, gathering evidence. I wore recording devices. I copied files. I pretended everything was normal while building a case. Lauren's face went white. Her attorney objected frantically, but the judge allowed Thomas to continue. The hardest part, my son's voice cracked slightly, was letting her think she'd fooled me about the pregnancy. She wore padding, bought fake ultrasounds, even had me touch her belly to feel the baby move. I played along while dying inside. Why didn't you warn your father? The FBI said we needed her to make an attempt for the strongest case. Dad was never supposed to be in real danger. We had agents among the catering staff and the security team. Morrison's people were actually federal backup. I sat stunned. My son had been protecting me while I'd been protecting him. We'd both suffered in silence, thinking we were shielding the other. Thomas produced recordings that sealed Lauren's fate. Conversations with her father, planning my death, discussions with Webb about drug dosages, even a chilling call with someone in Croatia about laundering the inheritance money. I loved my wife, Thomas concluded, tears flowing freely. But she never existed. The woman I married was a character, a performance. When I realized that, I knew I had to stop her from hurting anyone else, especially my father. Dr. Marcus Webb testified next, having made a deal for a reduced sentence. He revealed the full scope of the conspiracy. Lauren approached me 6 months ago. He said, avoiding eye contact with everyone. She knew about my gambling debts, offered to pay them if I helped. I provided medical knowledge, told her which drugs would mimic natural cardiac death in an elderly patient. Did you provide the actual drugs? Yes. Digitalis concentrate. Massive dose. She said she just wanted to make him sick, force him to retire. I didn't know she planned murder. Nobody believed that, but his testimony proved valuable. He detailed meetings with Lauren, money transfers, even Harold's involvement in planning previous murders. Harold Kovacevic himself maintained silence, but investigators had uncovered his history. A Croatian crime family, specializing in inheritance fraud across Europe. They'd sent Lauren to America specifically to hunt wealthy targets. She was their best operator, beautiful and brilliant, trained from childhood in the art of seduction and murder. The fake pregnancy proved particularly damning. Lauren had purchased positive tests, online padded her belly, even induced morning sickness with ipecac syrup. The jury saw photos of the nursery she'd decorated, the baby clothes she'd bought, all props in her deadly play. She made me paint the nursery, Thomas testified on redirect. Soft yellow, neutral for surprise gender. We spent weekends picking furniture, discussing names. She cried when we bought the crib, said she was so happy. All of it fake. All of it manipulation. When Lauren finally took the stand in her own defense, she tried one last performance. Tears, claims of coercion by her family, stories of abuse and desperation. But the jury saw through her mask, just as I had that night at the party. You've been married 3 times, the prosecutor pressed. All 3 husbands died within 3 years. All 3 left you substantial estates. Is that coincidence? I've been unlucky in love, Lauren replied softly. Unlucky, or calculating. David Chen died of a heart attack at 45. You'd been slowly poisoning him with digitalis for months, according to our analysis of his remains. Her attorney objected, but damage was done. Michael Vanessa's car accident. You cut his brake lines, didn't you? That was never proven. Because you had his body cremated before investigators could examine it properly. Just like you tried to arrange for Mr. Mitchell. The prosecutor displayed financial records showing millions flowing from dead husbands through shell companies to Croatia. Lauren's family had lived well on her murders, financing other operations with blood money. And Sullivan Mitchell was to be your biggest score yet. $27 million, enough to retire on. Lauren's composure finally cracked. He was old. His life was over anyway. Why should he have all that money when young people struggle? There it was. The real Lauren the predator, justifying her kills. The jury recoiled visibly. So you decided to kill him. And when your poison ended up in your mother's glass? That wasn't supposed to happen. Real anguish now. Mom wasn't the target. But she drank the poison you meant for Mr. Mitchell. Your own mother nearly died because of your greed. Lauren broke down completely, the performance over. The jury saw her true nature, a remorseless killer who'd finally faced consequences. The verdict came after just 3 hours of deliberation. Guilty on all counts. Murder conspiracy, attempted murder fraud, identity theft, money laundering. The judge sentenced her to 25, to life, no possibility of parole for 20 years. Harold got 15 years for conspiracy and racketeering. Webb lost his medical license and received 10 years. Margaret, brain damaged from her poisoning, was deemed unfit for trial, but would spend her remaining years in a medical facility. The Kovacevic crime family's American operations ended with their best operative in chains. After the trial, I sat with Thomas in my home office, the same room where I'd discovered Lauren's first betrayals. We'd barely spoken during the proceedings, both processing our parallel deceptions. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked finally. "Why didn't you tell me?" he countered. "We both thought we were protecting each other." The FBI approach. That was risky. So was your plan to let her poison you? At least I had backup. We looked at each other, then somehow started laughing. Painful, cathartic laughter at the absurdity of it all. Father and son both trying to save each other, both keeping deadly secrets. "I'm proud of you," I told him. "You did what I couldn't. You gathered evidence while living with her, loving her. That took incredible strength. I learned from you, Dad. You taught me to face hard truths, protect family, do what's right even when it hurts." We hugged, then really hugged for the first time since that awful night. The healing could finally begin. Emily joined us for dinner, bringing her family and restoration of normalcy. As we ate Patricia's pot roast, because some traditions survive all storms, she raised her glass. To the Mitchell men. Too stubborn to die, too smart to be fooled, too loyal to let evil win. And too lucky, I added. If I hadn't switched those glasses. But you did, Emily said firmly. You won, Dad. We all won. Later, alone in my study, I reflected on the lessons learned. Trust, but verify. Love, but stay alert. Build walls around your heart and your wealth, but don't let those walls prevent real connection. The doorbell interrupted my musings. A young woman stood on my porch, nervous but determined. Mr. Mitchell, I'm Sarah Chen, David Chen's daughter. I wanted to thank you. I invited her in, this daughter of Lauren's first victim. She looked like her father from the photos I'd seen during the investigation. Your testimony helped prove what happened to my dad, she said. For years, everyone said we were crazy, that his death was natural. You gave us closure. I'm sorry it took so long. You stopped her. That's what matters. She can't hurt anyone else. We talked for an hour about her father, about justice delayed, but not denied. When she left, I felt a weight lift. Lauren's previous victims had found vindication through our tragedy. The next morning brought another surprise. A package from Thomas containing architectural plans. Dad, his note read, I'm using my share of the inheritance to start over. A new construction company building affordable housing. Thought you might want to consult. Real retirement is boring anyway, right? I smiled, studying the plans. My son would build something good from the ashes of his marriage. The Sullivan legacy would continue stronger for surviving the storm. That evening, I hosted a real retirement dinner. Just family and close friends, no champagne toasts or hidden cameras. Emily brought a cake decorated with construction tools. Patricia told embarrassing stories from the early days. Richard pretended to check my pulse every hour as a running joke. To survived attempts, he toasted with water. And to the families that help us survive them. 6 months later, I stood at the groundbreaking for Thomas's first affordable housing project. He'd named it Chen Gardens, honoring Lauren's first victim. Beside him stood a woman named Grace, an architect he'd met through the project. She was kind, genuine, nothing like Lauren. Time would tell, but Thomas approached love now with eyes wide open. Morrison approached, as I watched my son direct workers. Sullivan thought you should know. Croatian authorities raided the Kovacevic compound last week. Used evidence from our case. Took down their entire operation.
Good.
Also, Lauren's trying to appeal. Claims ineffective counsel. Let her. Emily will bury her in paperwork until she's too old to remember why she started. That night, I updated my will one final time. The paranoid provisions were removed, replaced with simple trusts for Thomas, Emily, and their children. The poison-proof glasses went into storage. The security cameras came down. The gun returned to the safe permanently. The war was over. We'd won. But victory, I'd learned, wasn't just about survival. It was about moving forward, building new things from old foundations. It was Thomas finding love again, carefully but bravely. It was Emily using our case to create new task forces, preventing elder fraud. It was me consulting for my son's company, passing on knowledge without the weight of empire. Lauren had thought age made me weak, wealth made me a target. She'd been wrong on both counts. Age had given me wisdom to see through her lies. Wealth had provided resources to stop her. But neither age nor money had been my true strength. Family was. The son who loved me enough to live a lie to save me. The daughter whose fierce protection never wavered. The ex-wife who still cared despite our differences. The friends who stood ready to help. That was what Lauren never understood, could never understand. She saw relationships as transactions, people as marks love, as weakness to exploit. She'd moved through life, taking never building, never connecting. In the end, that isolation defeated her. When she switched my glass, she stood alone. When I switched it back, I had an army behind me. As I write this, Thomas's company has built 3 developments. Emily runs the Elder Justice Division at the District Attorney's Office. Patricia and I have lunch monthly, finding friendship after failed marriage. The grandchildren I thought I'd never see run through my yard, real ones this time. Bringing joy, Lauren's fake pregnancy never could. The money, it's there, protected, and working, funding scholarships for construction workers' kids, supporting Emily's task force building Thomas's dreams. $27 million doing good instead of feeding greed. Sometimes I dream about that night. The champagne sparkling in crystal Lauren's hand, moving like a snake, the glass switching in my fingers. But I wake peaceful, knowing the poison found its proper target in the end. Not me, but the conspiracy itself destroyed by its own weapon. Sun Tzu wrote that supreme excellence consists of breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting. But sometimes the enemy comes to your door, sits at your table, calls you dad, while planning your death. Then you must fight not with weapons, but with wisdom, not with rage, but with resolve. Lauren thought she was the apex predator in our family ecosystem. She was wrong. The old wolf still had teeth, and more importantly, he had a pack. The toast at my real retirement party still echoes, to survived attempts, and to the families that help us survive them. May your own families be as strong, as loyal, as ready to switch a poisoned glass when death comes smiling to your door. So I ask you, have you ever had someone you trusted betray you? How did you handle it? What would you have done in my place? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story touched you, please like and subscribe to hear more tales of justice served and families protected. Thank you for listening to an old man's tale of survival. May you never need such lessons. But if you do, remember, the best defense against predators is not walls or weapons, but the love of family who'll fight for you when darkness comes calling. Until next time, stay vigilant, trust wisely, and keep your champagne glasses close.